I'm ready.
All right, cool. Well, hey guys, welcome to the Like Mind podcast. We out here going virtual with my buddy Steven Adkins. He's out in Arizona now. We're good friends. When he was back in Miami, when I was on my health journey, basically building that foundation, detoxing, and all that stuff. So he's someone that has definitely mentored me when it came to healing and detoxing and just life in general, because he was older than me, but by how old are you, Steve? Like 40?
Shit, dude, I'm 41 right now, bro.
Yeah, so and I'm 28, so this was back when I was like 22, 21 at the time.
Yeah, I was like 21, 22. I think it was back when I would say 2018, 2019, something like that. But dude, honestly, man, it's honestly an honor. I feel like this is a huge milestone for you because I mean, again, I've seen some of your clips from the podcast that you just started literally not too long ago. So I feel like this can definitely pick up and go somewhere, and it will, honestly. So it's an honor to be here for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, bro. And I mean, I wanted to interview him because he just knows so much about like detoxing, herbs, life in general, but also astrology. And when he like, the thing about Steven, when he's into something, he's gonna dissect it and find the truth in it, and just be and has the awareness to catch on to the truth. So when it comes to like astrology and just things like that, like reading energy and stuff like that, he is someone that I can actually trust, because he knows what he's talking about when it came to health. And now astrology is a form of health. I know like billionaires use it. There's people that bet money on it, right? But
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely feel like it's something that is beneficial. I mean, you can get really sucked into it, or you can, use it as just like a hobby or whatever. But I definitely feel like it's a good way to predict, I guess, certain things. Also, able to read someone's emotional, physical, and mental mode of operation. It can go very, very deep for the most part. And in a sense, yeah, it definitely is a part of, I guess, spiritual health, if you want to call it, occult practice. But I definitely feel like it's definitely very beneficial. It's part of my repertoire, aside from the physical aspect of things, eating healthy, detoxing. Obviously, what we digest on social media as well is important too. So yeah.
Yeah, and people, it's really controversial. Some people, they don't believe in it. Like, for one example, like people in my family, like when we start talking about like the signs, they're like, "Oh my God, here we go." You guys, like they
Yeah,
think
I
it's
don't know.
like
I don't know if your
bullshit.
mom or your parents grew up with this astrologer back in the days. He was Walter Mercado, but he used to do a lot of predictions on like Univision and shit like that. I mean, honestly, I can't really vouch for the guy. I mean, he was very mystical. He was a little flamboyant and shit. I tend to take a very practical approach to certain things. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, astrology is really fun. It's something that I discovered actually a long time ago, man. But it was one of those things where it was mainly just like, picking up certain patterns with sun signs and being like, oh shit, like this kind of fits because this person acts like this person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, it kind of got deeper than that, and I started like researching more into like different placements, moon signs, Venus signs, Mars signs, and it sort of all kind of encompasses different aspects of one's being for the most part. And I only got deeper into it when I was living in Indonesia. I don't know what it was, man. I think the growth during those studies of the occult were extremely accelerated. And I started putting things together much quicker, and it just became more than just a hobby, but like an actual like passion. So yeah.
And what is like astrology, if for people that don't know?
The best way I can describe it, honestly, is the study of planets. I think whenever you're born, we're given this astrological blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
So planets are always moving around the solar system, pretty much, and we are sort of we're akin to that. We're our emotions. I mean, if you can kind of like if you're intuitive, if you're aware of certain things, you can tell the moon is the one luminary that changes signs every 2.5 to 3 days, there's sort of like a different flavor for the most part. Besides Mercury also being one of the fastest moving planets that changes every 3.5 weeks in the sign, the moon changes every 3.5 days. So every 3.5 days is sort of like a different flavor. You know, days can seem longer than other days. Certain things are also weighing on us emotionally differently.
Yeah.
So I guess to explain astrology, it's one of those things where it allows us to tap into planetary energies and helps us become more aware of, you know, certain themes in our lives at any given point in time. And again, when you're born, you're given this blueprint. It's sort of like a birth certificate. It's more like your soul certificate for the most part. And it allows us to, I guess, see exactly what kind of energy is inside of us. Like I was stating, our mental, physical, moral.
And what
Correct.
the energy of the world, I guess, was in at that moment, right? I guess
Exactly. It's collectively what was happening at that moment.
based
And
on where you were born too, because in a specific spot.
Yeah, exactly. Based on the latitude, the longitude, wherever you were born, exactly. The birth time is actually very crucial. Without the birth time, without the exact birth time, you can't really generate a full chart because the birth time is actually synonymous with being able to generate your rising sign. Without the birth chart, without the birth time, all you can really do is generate where the planets were, which will give you a rough idea of the energy you're working with again. But the rising sign is the most crucial aspect of it because the rising sign, or what's called the ascendant or the first house, generates the houses, which are the areas of life or the stages in which the planets are pretty much acting out their role or their archetypal roles. So yeah, it's one of those things where if you can get the birth time, you generate the rising sign. The rising sign, for those that don't know, is who you truly are in essence. A lot of people tend to be more keen on identifying as their sun sign, but the rising sign represents your physical body, your spirit, your being, your identity, your quote unquote self. So it is you down to the core, and it is the first house. So if you go in order on the zodiacal wheel, the first house is you, and then from there it goes chronological order, placing your houses 2 through 12 in different signs. And every single one, depending on if you have planets or not, will tell you exactly how they're acting out in your life, you know? And each house represents a different part of your life. So
yeah. When did astrology, like when did they start recording like astrology?
dude, honestly, astrology has been studied throughout history. Honestly, ancient civilizations have been using this for a long time. I go by a certain system, which again, it's not going to matter now, but I go by a system that is probably one of the oldest systems. It's called Greek Hellenistic astrology, but it originated in Egypt. And it's Western tropical, using a whole sign house system. I know a lot of people use CoStar, they use Placidus. I personally do not advise that whatsoever. I believe that using Placidus is not the most accurate way to represent what is on your chart. But I mean, everyone for the most part uses what they feel they resonate with the most. A lot of people use Vedic, sidereal. I tend to stick more with tropical because it is the most accurate. Yeah.
What's like the difference between those? Like how do they come up with like different?
I mean, honestly, it's just throughout history, different studies of how the stars are, the constellations. I think Vedic goes more towards the constellations and where they are exactly positioned in the sky. Tropical is more along the lines of basing where all the planets are depending on where the sun is. So we have the winter solstice, the spring equinox, summer solstice, and the sun is positioned in different points of the sky at that time, and all the planets are pretty much going according to the sun's movement. And it's to me, it's the most accurate used with whole sign houses because whole sign houses creates degrees in the house, and it's 30 degrees per sign per house. It's equal. Placidus tends to make certain things a little difficult to understand because you can have houses that are less than 30 degrees or more than 30 degrees. So again, it's kind of complicated, but you sort of have to be able to understand that whenever a planet is moving into a particular sign, it is hitting a part of your chart. But Placidus states that as it's hitting that part of your chart, it can also hit a different part of your chart as well. And it does not make any sense. When a planet moves into a house,
It's not consistent, basically.
it's not consistent at all. There's
Yeah.
obvious discrepancies. Yeah.
Science and math should be consistent, right? So that makes a lot of sense. How do they like come
Absolutely.
up with the energies of the planets, like in the houses? Like how, like over time, I guess they.
Honestly, over time, they were categorized into different meanings. The way I like to interpret it is for anyone that wants to study astrology or understand astrology, um, the planets are the actors in a movie, and the signs are the roles that they play or the costumes that they wear, the
Mhm.
archetypes, and the houses are the stages in which they're acting out in. So again, if the sun moves into like we're in Sagittarius season right now. So the sun moves into Sagittarius, it's pretty much going to be acting out specific qualities of that archetype of that sign. The sun is more characterized with your purpose, your vitality, certain behavioral traits as well, but it's more of like
Yeah.
your purpose, your vitality. When the sun shines, there's nothing that there's no shadows, right? It shines its light on everything. So Sagittarius, being a very wild, being a very untamed sign, likes to express itself a certain way. The energy is going to be more fiery. The energy is going to be more optimistic. The energy is going to be more adventurous, more truth seeking, which is a huge, huge theme for Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Always going beyond the horizon to seek what is next, what's the next adventure, what's the next thing I can learn, study. It's the philosopher sign of the zodiac. So, yeah.
So basically, because I'm trying to like understand the foundation of it. So like how people came up with it in the beginning, you know?
Dude, honestly,
Because I mean, I would say that maybe I guess over time when because Sagittarius and all these names, they're just names of the certain energy they came up with,
mhm,
right? So
absolutely. This is just all based on constellations for the
just
most part.
awareness, basically, like being aware of the planets and then just I guess just understanding where all the planets were. Just I guess I
Correct.
don't know, it just takes probably a long time. I don't know
I
how long
mean,
it's been
yeah,
around.
correct. It's really, I mean, literally, I mean, even before calendars,
Probably like
people,
natives and stuff created this, like
oh,
Native
absolutely. I mean,
Americans and like
ancient Egyptians, used widely by
indigenous.
ancient Egyptians,
Yeah,
Aztecs, Mayans, everybody. So,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, they did. Like I guess that's what they called like the end of the world back in like what was it like 2010 or something like that.
pretty much, which is just honestly, I mean, everything is cycles within cycles, which is probably just an end of an era, right? End of the world could just be an end of an era, a culmination,
End of
a
an age.
end of a chapter, end of an age. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know we're now like in the age of Aquarius, right?
Yeah, right now we're technically in the age of Aquarius,
It
which
started
again
like
is
a while ago, like 4 years ago, right?
it's a lot of people. Yeah, there's different beliefs on the age of Aquarius and when it came about. I personally think now we're in a completely different age simply because Pluto, which is a planet that revolves or transits a particular sign every 14 to 30 years, depending on the sign, has now moved into a completely different sign. So um, it's it's in a sense a different chapter starting for the most part. One that's more innovative, one that's more radical, one that's more um, individualistic because it's in the sign of Aquarius. So
Yeah.
um, I guess to give you a bit of a context, so a lot of people talk about what a Pluto return is. A Pluto return is pretty much, or any planet goes into a different sign, it goes whenever Pluto goes into a sign, it pretty much stays there for a certain amount of time. But an entire evolution throughout the entire zodiac can take about 250 years or so. So the last time Pluto was in Capricorn, which was the sign that it was in before it just moved into Aquarius in November, it was, I believe, during the Declaration of Independence, which is when America became what it was. So a lot of people really characterize this last Pluto return, meaning Pluto going through all the signs and going back into its original Capricorn sign, as the end of an era for the most part. So a lot of people are, obviously there's reels
Totally
out there saying
accepted.
this could be the beginning of the fall of America. This could be the start of a new system completely, a new age where we're living differently. It's not about status. It's more about being authentic, things like that. So it really is just another cycle starting for the most part. Yeah.
And so the age of Aquarius is like, and so you're saying like the age of Aquarius, how long would that last? Like 250 years, basically?
More. Correct. More or less 250 years, if not maybe a little longer. An age is different from a Pluto cycle, but I would say the age of Aquarius would probably be an entire Pluto cycle. Yeah.
That's crazy. So yeah, I mean now, what is Aquarius like energy?
Dude, Aquarius energy. The most I can really characterize Aquarius energy is radically authentic, very individualistic. It's the opposite of Leo. Leo likes to be seen. Leo's in the spotlight. It's ruled by the sun. Aquarius is more about the collective, about humanitarian efforts, not really being seen as an individual or the self, but more along the lines of, there is no self and we're all just kind of like one cohesive thing moving through a network for the most part. But very radically authentic, detached, a little dismissive, very rebellious, anarchistic. It's a Saturnian sign. While Saturn really is all about structure and responsibility and for the most part time, because Saturn is synonymous with time. I think Saturn ruling over Aquarius is a little different than Saturn ruling Capricorn. Capricorn wants to be more structured, more responsible, more traditional. Aquarius tends to push those boundaries and be more progressive, looking more towards the future rather than the past, like Capricorn. Because Capricorn is all about building a foundation, getting invested with the evolutionary process, and then looking back to see, okay, look how much I've built throughout time. Look how much we've structured throughout time. Aquarius is more along the lines of, let's look more forward to the future, to what can be changed, not necessarily break any laws, but see what can come about by just thinking differently, So.
And so, I mean, I guess now you see that with people like coming out, like not being into the news and the media, being like anti-vax, kind of like against the system, just like thinking outside the system, basically.
Pretty much for the most part. I think that there's going to be a lot of changes in these next 20 years, since that's how long Pluto will be in Aquarius until it moves into Pisces. I think the biggest thing is going to be, technology is moving at an extremely rapid rate. It's kind of like, think about when the first iPhone came out, it was like, holy shit, came out of nowhere, was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Now, every day we're on these phones and we're looking at these reels and we're seeing new technology coming out every single day. So it's definitely technology based. It's definitely more oriented towards, again, being completely honest, transparent, authentic with who they are, who one is.
Yeah.
And also being like very much about the community. So I think a lot of more niche digital communities might spring up, maybe more decentralized platforms. And again, a new monetary system could be in place as well. It's kind of hard to say for the most part, but obviously with the advancement of AI, things can definitely go anywhere from here.
I mean, I was telling you about like XRP back like 5-6 years ago or something like that.
Dude, let me tell you something, bro. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'll give you a lot of credit where credit's due. I was not really, I guess, to segue into a completely different branch or different topic.
Yeah.
Back when I knew you, I wasn't really keen on the trading thing. I wasn't keen on hearing any of that stuff. I thought it was all just a scam, pretty much, for the most part. But I heard the XRP. I heard different coins, trading, all that stuff, and it was like, I don't know about this. I don't know if I should get into it, whatever. And it's funny because when I left to Bali, a lot of people there were, investing at the time. That I think we were in the middle of a bull cycle, and I ended up investing in XRP as well. So it was good times, and also another few coins, Litecoin, Ethereum, a little bit of BTC as well, Cardano, Solana, I think. Yeah. So yeah.
So what made you, speaking of the system, like what made you start questioning it?
Which system? The crypto system or the
No, just like the system in general, like
in general,
basically.
Dude, honestly, bro, that's a hard question to answer, man. I mean, honestly, I feel like the biggest factor for me being that I was born in the 80s. So I come from the pre-internet days. And I think the biggest thing for me that made me start questioning certain things was probably 9/11. Like, honestly, I think when that happened, I was going to college briefly because I dropped out of college, but I was going to college briefly and I saw it on the news. chilling in the lounge. And I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, okay, that's crazy. But then I saw the impact that it had on people and shit. And obviously,
Yeah.
you've heard Gary talk about this, where it was done on an 11 day, which is a highly emotional day. I happen to be a life path 11, but that's a whole different story. But it's definitely a day to be remembered. And after that, obviously, YouTube came out. Going through YouTube, I started seeing videos about, conspiracies and about how the whole thing was staged and planned. So I think from there, I definitely started questioning things. But I've always had an authority to like just go against the grain, and be completely, if you want to call it anarchistic, if you want to call it rebellious, and just ask why. Like, why are we doing this? Why do I have to do
Question
this?
authority.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
How did you get into like herbs and changing your diet or lifestyle?
Damn, that's a big one. So I was dating a woman, and who I'm still friends with, and we were both in this relationship where we were just kind of like being very degenerate. I came from a very long, extensive background of drug abuse,
Yeah.
and so did she. And at some point, we just started researching about health, and I think we saw a documentary on Netflix way back called, I don't even think it's around anymore, but it's called Food Matters. It's a documentary on, I guess, for the most part, eating healthier, I guess, detoxing, if you want to call it that. And I started researching it more and more and more. So from there, I kind of like, you know, got the assist to go into like different branches of health more holistically, obviously not the allopathic system. And I discovered Dr. Sebi, obviously Dr. Morse as well. And from there, I sort of got the knowledge from Morse and from Sebi, and kind of sort of just started incorporating
How'd you hear about Dr. Morse?
Dr. Morse. I heard about Dr. Morse
He's
through,
like
again,
super, he's not very like known, so it's kind of hard to just hear about him.
yeah, I mean, I think for the most part now he's a little more known, but I think Morse. I first learned about Sebi, and then from there I just started watching videos on. A lot of people were posting videos on Dr. Morse, and Dr. Morse was someone that really preached, not just you know uh, consciousness, but he also talked about living a healthier lifestyle, fasting, detoxing, targeting certain systems of the body, so that we can open up the pathways and drain toxins out of the body, and therefore regenerate or rejuvenate the body. And then from there, again, since he's based in Florida and I was living in Florida at the time, my
Yeah.
girlfriend at the time, we both attended his course. And from there, we dived deeper into, obviously, his teachings, and yeah, took his seminar and got our certifications for detoxification.
That's dope, bro. Yeah. Yeah, Dr. Morris, he's definitely helped a lot. He makes things very like simple because he used to. I heard about him. My brother Lucas sent me a video called like the Great Lymphatic System,
That's yeah.
and that was like the video that made a lot of sense because he talks about how we're like carbon-based beings. Cars are carbon-based. Everything that's carbon-based needs a fuel system and
Hmm.
an exhaust system and all that stuff. So like our exhaust system, which is our sewer system, our lymphatic system. That's kind of like what
Absolutely.
takes out all the toxins from the body. That's basically what causes us to have disease.
No, absolutely. I think having that knowledge come at that time was quite appropriate. And I mean, you and I can attest to that. We found each other through that as
Yeah.
well. And we also connected with a bunch of other people within that community, obviously through social media, which is the biggest influencer there, to sort of, have us. Because again, going on a diet like that amongst people that are living unhealthy, or at the time living unhealthier at the time, it's like,
Yeah.
it's very niche. There's not a lot of people like us out there. So it's like
No.
we're connecting with people in Miami, but also from all over the world. So
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I mean, I got a lot of my friends into it. Not a lot, but at least like a handful, you know. And
yeah.
it definitely like, it definitely helped them out. Um, some people they take the journey of detoxing and they kind of get lost in it. Um, which is easy, obviously, because you're getting rid of toxins. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna go fucking crazy and stuff. So, I mean, you got to kind of find yourself, and it was definitely like a deep, deep time. like
Yeah, no,
reflecting and stuff?
it definitely came with a lot of different things too. I think when I started diving deeper into fasting and detoxification, I think other things came along with it. I got into yoga. I got into semen retention. I started sleeping on the floor, realigned my hips and spine, and got into breath work as well. So there definitely is a spiritual aspect of it, especially as you start to get less dense, and you get, not to say that I think for the most part, we're at a level where I think all of us now we understand, given the awareness and given what we have at our disposal, we're all telepathic in a sense. We're all highly intuitive in a sense. But I will say that, yeah, being on a less dense diet and fasting and going down that path can definitely lead to some spiritual, I'm not gonna say enlightenment, but something along the lines of a spiritual awareness, I guess, if you want to call it that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you find yourself, you have to reflect a lot. Got to be disciplined. You got to, follow through. You got to really want to be healthy, you know. But then you can get obsessed, and that's when it can get toxic, But at the end of the day, it's like I said, you're doing an oil change. I always told people, like, hey, I was eating the same foods for 18 years. So
Mm.
if I just detox, I give myself an oil change and just detox for 1, 2, 3 years, I'll basically rebalance my whole digestive system, lymphatic system, and then I can start taking the stuff and actually using what's important from it, like the meat and all that stuff.
Yeah, I definitely felt like it got very toxic. I also feel like for me individually, there was a lot of things that were also unaddressed. And I think because of that, the diet or the lifestyle gave me like this massive ego. And again, I still have that ego in me, but it made me this sort of, again, radical person where it's like, I had to preach not eating animals or not eating animal products or not doing certain things. And obviously now I'm on the other end of the spectrum, or like you said,
Yeah.
much more balanced. And but yeah, it can definitely get out of hand. It can get a little you can go a little overboard. And obviously I think now, given what we've seen on social media, there can be some degenerative effects if one does go a little too far.
Yeah. What was like the hardest thing to give up, like regarding your health development?
Can you elaborate on that more?
Just like
Like,
either like like a habit that you had, or like a food, something that you had to like stop doing in order for you to get healthy.
is this when I went to raw vegan or when I
Any
went to,
any in any moment it could be.
whew, I mean, honestly, dude, the biggest thing for me, because again, I feel like we all have vices. We're all addicts in a sense.
Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest thing was probably just drugs, to be completely honest. I think that was the biggest thing for me because I feel like, okay, at the time when I was vegan, if I can honestly tap more into it, like I'm feeding my body, I'm giving my body all these good things, but I'm also still polluting my body with certain substances. And again, it's not the end of the world. It's not the worst because it was just
Mhm.
marijuana. But I do feel like marijuana goes to me the hardest thing to give up consumption wise because I mean, I was a stoner for 14 years, and I'm not saying that I'll never go back to it now, but I feel like putting a halt on that and really solidifying the fact that I can live a sober life allows me to at least be like, okay, if I ever want to smoke again, or if I ever want to take an edible, whatever, I can do that and not get completely sucked into the whole thing again, where it was like I had to have a
Yeah.
pipe every 5 minutes to my mouth, every 5 minutes smoking. So I think to me that was the biggest thing. As far as food wise, I never really had an issue giving up anything. I think the woman that I was with at the time and we gave up things very quickly. I tend to be a very extreme person. So when I go in, I
Mhm.
go all in, and I eliminate certain things. But um, yeah,
What are some of the best things to do when it comes to detoxifying detoxifying your body?
I definitely feel now, for the record, I guess for everyone out there listening, I eat more of a balanced diet now. I used to be
Yeah.
raw vegan, more on the fruitarian end, taking herbs, fasting, doing enemas. Now I do incorporate animal products. I still think fruits are absolutely essential. I still think
Yeah.
taking supplements and fruits are absolutely essential. I think to remain balanced, The biggest factor is regularly fasting. I would say maybe once a month, maybe periodically throughout the year, once a quarter. Water, for me, is the best thing to do because it's a universal solvent. It doesn't contain sugar or anything like that. It's just literally just plain water, reverse osmosis.
Mhm.
But I guess to add on to that, I would also say incorporating maybe an enema here and there, maybe once a month or once every few months, just to clean the pipes, give the digestion a break. And intermittent fasting is crucial. I intermittent fast at least 18 hours a day. That's the biggest factor, just being able to give your body a rest from digestion at any given point in time every day. Obviously, we live busy lives. That's not always going to be the case, but I think it's important to definitely regularly abstain from food. So, yeah.
Yeah, once you start fasting, it's kind of like you don't get hungry. Like a lot of times people just eat because their stomach it like growls and stuff like that. And like, oh, I'm hungry. But if you can learn how to, I guess fasting like helps you kind of just not feel that anymore, or just go along with it. Just be like, hey, I'm not really hungry. Because I remember when fasting, true hunger was like you were like salivating out of your mouth,
Yeah. Like
and
your throat was dry, you're salivating. Now it's more on the lines of like it's a conscious effort to understand, okay, this takes discipline. And for the most part, like your stomach growling isn't the end of the world. Like when I was younger, I wasn't even thinking about food. Like I was thinking about going outside, playing video games, going out with friends. Like the last thing on my mind was food because I was doing something. I was creating or I was just having
yeah,
fun. So we become used to, again, the standard American diet has you eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, having a certain amount of calories. It's like it really isn't like that, and it shouldn't be like that, honestly. It should definitely not feel like a every day at this time kind of thing. It really is dependent on where you're at, and just listening to your body, but actually listening to your body and not giving into a signal that is completely normal. So.
why do people need to detox?
Dude, I think the biggest factor right now is, and again, it might sound crazy saying this, but I feel like, and not to say that food is just entertainment, but I feel like a lot of the food now is extremely adulterated. We know the soil is depleted. And don't get me wrong, like I still eat fruits. I buy local whenever I can, usually local, but I feel like we're not getting as much nutrients from our foods as somebody born in the 1920s, 1915, 1910s were. I think now it's a lot more depleted. Obviously, we have people spraying shit in the air. We got the Wi-Fi. I mean, we I don't even use a microwave, but I'm literally living in a microwave right now. So I feel like it's important to take additional supplements. I feel like we're moving forward into a future where, unfortunately, everyone is going to have to take herbs or some sort of supplementation to remain at baseline because we're just not getting all of those nutrients. And the human genome is just becoming a lot more compromised as new generations come into play. I feel like I can take more. My body can take more now than a kid half my age, because again,
Yeah,
the food is worse. And because I guess the immune system is different in that person, or they were born differently, it just really depends. But I feel like with everything in the air and in the atmosphere, supplements like glutathione are very important, and NAD, things that are really get rid of oxidative stress and radiation from the body. Regularly though, like literally take them every day, or again, incorporating enemas as well that can detox the liver, like coffee
yeah.
enemas. Super important,
So what do you take like every day? Glutathione, NAD.
man. I take a lot of stuff. Some stuff I skip days on, but I would say everything in my arsenal is comprised of, okay, I got raw spirulina. I have a green powder that I take, not every day, but every other day.
Mm.
Collagen as well is very important. That's one thing that I never got as a raw vegan. So I do take that every day now. I also take L-glutamine, which is incredible for the digestion. Um, I take niacin, immediate release as well, really good for circulation, for detoxing as well. I take that at night before bed. Magnesium glycinate, which is great for relaxing like the muscles in your body, um, along with L-theanine as well. It's great for sleeping. Um, what else can I say? Oh, I still take herbs. The only herbs I really take though, that I really prioritize are sea moss, bladderwrack, and burdock. And again, we've heard this from Dr. Morris, from Dr. Sebi. Obviously,
Yeah.
these are great sea algae that can help you just, you know, with all the minerals of your body, pretty much. Um, what
You take
else?
Shilajit?
I take Shilajit as well.
Yeah.
I take glutathione. Glutathione is probably the one thing that I'm most, if I can come out here and promote one thing the most, I think glutathione is one of the best things because glutathione really is like a master antioxidant.
What is that?
It is a supplement that detoxes the brain, the lungs, the gut, and the liver. And
Or what is
it
it like?
it removes heavy metals from the body. Yeah.
Or like
Heavy met
what is glutathione like? Where do they come where do they get that from?
I can't tell you exactly if there's an actual natural source for glutathione. I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
But I do take it regularly. I got word from it from this guy called Dave Espray. He's like this biohacker and stuff. So I started taking it, particularly because I fly a lot, and there's a lot of radiation in airports. So and obviously on airplanes. So I take it whenever I fly, but I take it regularly because I'm obviously living in a bit of a cooked environment. So it's always good, honestly, to just keep yourself
How
um,
much like do you spend a month, I would say, like on
shit
supplements?
on supplements, man. It really depends. Dude, I would
Because I guess
say,
you load up and then you might
yeah, I mean,
be
I would honestly say to load up on everything, I would say at least $700 to load up on everything. But I mean, I'm not gonna run out of everything all at once. So it's like something runs
yeah.
out, I'll get it again. This will run out at a different time, I'll get it again. But yeah, it really just honestly depends.
So you invest a lot into that.
The biggest thing I invest in is my health.
Yeah.
I can't say that there's anything else that's worth investing as much as your health. I think your health is top priority. I come from, again, my father has lupus. He's been sick since I was born. He got struck with, lupus and I think some other autoimmune issue. I'm not really sure what it's called. And yeah, I kind of got a firm grasp of that when I was young, but I never knew how to exactly go about getting healthy until obviously I met my now ex-girlfriend and we kind of went on that path together. But yeah, I think first priority is your health. I think that's obviously true wealth for the most part. Everything else comes second.
What do you think makes someone healthy? Like are there categories that you have?
Man, there's definitely categories besides physical health. This is what I'm saying. When I was vegan and primarily raw vegan, there were a lot of unaddressed issues that I was just kind of like, putting under the table. Honestly, I was just dismissing them. And a lot of them were just like healing unaddressed wounds, generational trauma. And I think that having a good connection to God is extremely important, or you can call it a creator, a prime creator, whatever you want to call it. But having some sort of connection to source is extremely important. So not just the physical aspect, but the mental aspect as well. I recently got into subconscious reprogramming also. A friend of mine, his name is Orlando. He got me onto these, they're called subliminal tapes. And they're a recording of somebody pretty much saying affirmations.
Yeah.
And I put them on while I sleep. Now I don't sleep with any electronics in my room, but I just leave it right outside when the phone is on airplane mode and I have it playing enough so I can hear it. So when I'm sleeping, my subconscious is hearing all these things and reprogramming my brain. It's kind of like similar how people write affirmations or they say affirmations in the mirror,
Yeah.
but supposedly subconscious reprogramming through subliminal tapes works much quicker because when you're asleep, your subconscious is awake. So I've been doing that recently.
Sure.
So yeah, I definitely feel physical health, spiritual health, and again, that's also a wide range in itself. But one thing that I did notice when I went back to eating animal products, besides being a little more grounded, was the fact that I started addressing my issues as well. I started going to therapy. I think therapy is extremely important. And I honestly, I would shun it in the past. Also, I would talk down about it all the time. It was something that I would see in the movies. I'm like, okay, this guy's going to a shrink. He's talking about his shit. So it's like a movie thing, but
Yeah.
it really is something that is extremely important, man. Because I think as we go
Yeah.
throughout this life, we're constantly, we're repressing emotions and we're having to release them and address certain things. And I think having someone to talk to is very, very important. So yeah.
And like, how much would you say? Because I mean, I guess with herbs as well, like how much would you say you invest like in like therapy, I guess, a month? Like how much is that? I've never even,
Honestly, I
you
can
gotta have
say
good
I don't.
insurance or something, right?
Yeah, I have insurance. Funny, I've never used insurance in my entire life because I don't believe going to doctors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But now I use my insurance strictly for therapy. I pay like I think $120 per session. I
Yeah.
go once a week, sometimes once every 2 weeks. If there's something on my schedule for that day and I can't make it, I'll reschedule. But I was actively going
How
for
did you
about
find a therapist?
what's up?
How did you find like someone?
So, just in the area, researching around, I wanted to find someone that specialized in cognitive behavioral therapy in particular, which helps address, issues, helps you with communication as well. I will admit I have issues with uh, creating guidelines with communication and working on I'm currently still even working on my delivery right now, but definitely just going on the internet and searching. I went through a few therapists before I found the right one. I will admit,
Yeah.
and it's not something that oh, I found one, he's going to be great. You really have to read the bio, maybe even see them at one point, see if you vibe very well. And I found a guy that I felt was on top of his game, and he understood exactly where I was coming from. At the time, I was going through a very bad breakup. So I went with him. I went to him actively for like 8 months. Now I go like periodically, maybe once every 2 weeks, sometimes even maybe once a month. But for the most part, he's helped me a lot. And yeah, I honestly, I can't, I support it 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Just having someone to talk to and be open with basically, and
Yeah.
they know how to read that. I guess they know how to understand like behaviors and what you can do.
Yeah. I feel like the biggest thing with being able to have someone there, and obviously you're paying for that time, is having them just listen to you. I think actively listening is extremely important. And I just needed someone to listen to me. Honestly, that's the biggest thing because I have a very active mind as well. So
Yeah.
things pile up, and it's important to be able to listen. Obviously, and they go. This goes for every single relationship, not just going to therapy. I think people holding space is extremely important. Being empathetic towards each other's emotions. Um, Obviously, setting boundaries as well. With that and creating healthy guidelines for communication. And that definitely will help foster much more healthier and complementary relationships in your life.
Um, how was your outlook on food and healing? How has your outlook on food and healing changed? Or do you still kind of like support that healing, that form of healing?
And this is in regards to like what, like,
Yeah, just like detoxing, like have like anything changed? I mean, obviously just the eating the meat obviously has changed, but anything particular that you thought back then now that you kind of support now, or you
honestly, man,
don't
I went
support
I,
now?
I went such a long time being vegan, and I will admit detoxing is important. I again, it's very admirable for people that want to be vegan, especially for the animals and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna knock that at all whatsoever, but I definitely feel like there is a limit to how much you can do, how much you can detox. And I used to be someone that was very extreme with it.
Yeah.
And at some point, I started ignoring signs that my body was showing me, like, this isn't right. Like, my hair got more brittle. Um, my teeth were like hurting a lot more because I was eating so many acids with the fruits and juicing as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had to sort of get past this mental barrier because it is a mental barrier, honestly. When you're in it for that long, it almost feels like, and I don't want to say it like this because I don't want people to think that's what it is, but it almost feels like you're in a, like a cult in a way.
Mhm.
And now being on the other side of that, or the more balanced side of that, I definitely feel like it's, again, my brain always fires off. I'm very sharp for the most part, but now I feel more grounded. Uh, the vegans will probably say, oh, you're just sedated, or you're overworking your adrenals. So like, you're more like low, but it really, I honestly have not had any adverse effects going back. If anything, things have improved drastically. So, and again, I still incorporate fruits, I still incorporate herbs, but I think the biggest indicator for me that I needed to sort of go back, or weigh out my options again in terms of diet and lifestyle, were when I started noticing deficiencies uh, with myself. So,
Would you ever like go back to doing that, or?
what's crazy, man, is I thought about that, man, and I don't want to bring astrology into the picture either, but I noticed one thing is that, okay, Saturn is sort of the planet of restrictions. And I'm going to be very quick with this. Saturn is the planet of
Yeah.
restrictions, setbacks, delays, and responsibilities. It shifted into Pisces, which is a very heavily faith-based sign that is all about belief systems for the most part. And it shifted into the sign back in early 2023. I started noticing that second that Saturn moved into that sign, everybody was sort of rethinking certain things about diet, about lifestyle, about religion, faith, all these things. So I noticed that
Mhm.
a lot of the long-term vegans started going back. And one of my friends in Bali actually had gone back, and he told me, he's like, yo, I know you're probably gonna hate me for this, but I went back and I started questioning things a lot. And then my ex was also very keen on going deeper into that also, because she was vegan for 6 years. This is another current ex, not the ex from when I first was what had gone vegan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I pretty much just like I I went for it, honestly. I had to try it out for myself, and yeah, I did it.
I want to get into psychedelics because I know you definitely participated in some of that stuff. So, what are some like realizations you've had from psychedelics? I know like RFK Jr., he's very much into it now. So this is like something that a lot of states are now legalizing it. So people use it for, therapy as well, right?
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, yeah, I've been on I was on psychedelics for a long time. Weed being somewhat of a psychedelic as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've done MDMA in the past. I've never done LSD, but I have done, psilocybin mushrooms. I've done DMT as well. And I think a lot of that was also abused. A lot of it has some intention, but I think me coming from a very addictive background, which all addiction stems from trauma in some sense, I I fell into the trap of like just wanting to sort of, do it for, I guess, the recreation aspect of it. Even if I was telling myself that there was intention behind it, there's no way you can have so much intent and abuse the hell out of it constantly. So the biggest thing with me was, as far as realizations go, man. When I did have realizations, um, the biggest factor with me, because obviously all psychedelics dissolve the ego, it really had to do with coming to terms with who I was as a person, things I needed to change, um, and just living a better life in general. And again, we need the ego. No one's completely dissolved the ego. We need it to create action and to motivate ourselves for the most part and to do things. But I think with me, it was just it's for self introspection, pretty much for self reflection. Um,
Yeah.
I also experimented with that when I was living in Indonesia, which is very interesting as well. But I feel like I have to say this, after a while of doing it so much, um, you're not really showing anything else. I mean, you've seen everything for the most part.
Yeah.
I think people call it a ceremony, but I think the ceremony really happens after the actual psychedelic ceremony, when you
Yeah.
have to integrate everything you've learned, into your everyday life. And it's not one of those things where it's like, oh man, I'm not healed. Let me go ahead and pop another mushroom. It's really having to deal with like life struggles sober. And I truly believe that, honestly. I haven't touched psychedelics in a long time. I'm still open to obviously doing them, but I feel like life experiences need to be accrued for the most part for a certain amount of time before going back into that just for the sake of wanting to heal or wanting to see something else or whatever, because
Yeah.
then it becomes a loop after that. It's a loop. So
And like, I mean, some people like, what do you think makes someone have like a bad trip or like a good trip?
I mean, with all psychedelics, it's pretty much set and setting. So it's mindset and your immediate environment. I think
Yeah.
it's very important, especially if you're taking higher doses of, I mean, whatever, to understand that you're about to take this plant medicine and set an intention behind it, whether it's to heal from something, whether it's to address something, whether it's to be shown something, and highly, highly respect it. And again, I'm one of those people that, although I can say I highly respected it, I don't think I did. I think I abused the hell out of it, sometimes for the wrong reasons. And I mean, I don't regret any of it, but I think the biggest thing is that just having the right mindset that you're about to be shown certain, especially if we've never done it before. I mean, this plant, this compound is crossing the natural brain filter and hitting a part of you that, if it's your first time, has never been accessed. So a lot of repressed emotions can come up. I'm a firm believer of breathing. Breath work is so crucial, especially when taking psychedelics. It'll put you back in your body. It'll
Yeah.
keep you present, because I think as a society we are extremely anxious and we don't breathe enough. Again, this goes back to a lot of teachings that I'm pretty sure as well. When we're born and we're babies, you look at how babies breathe. They breathe from the diaphragm. They breathe full. They're happy. They're joyous. But throughout life, we start experiencing things that make us hold our breath, make us hesitant about certain things, and before you know it, you realize that you're not even breathing correctly, or you're breathing through your mouth or whatever. So I think it's important to practice mindfulness and being present with your
Yeah, and
breath.
I mean, a lot of that people that, I mean, because I can't even go to sleep if I can't like fully breathe like through both my noses. Because when I go to sleep, I like lay flat and I like slowly breathe before I go to sleep. And if I have any type of like blockage, like I'm like
Yeah,
trying to blow my nose, I'm like trying to take a hot shower so I get rid of like any mucus and stuff. But yeah, I guess some people
absolutely.
they are full of mucus and that's why they have like sleep apnea or things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the biggest thing is keeping that in check. I think obviously people that are unhealthy, going back to the whole health thing, is just opening up those pathways and clearing out all the obstructions, so the body can go back into functioning the way it should be, and into like a natural state of like, or pretty much like a natural homeostatic state. So
Where it's like naturally just detoxing. Because like me, like my my body just naturally is always detoxing now. Now that like I felt like I went through that phase of detoxing and being on
you
like
see it too, right? Because you were vegan for a long time, so you see how now you're more balanced. It's like your body naturally knows how to regulate itself.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
still.
what do you like and dislike about the like so-called spiritual community? Because I remember back when we were like raw vegan, like a lot of people like they're like super corny and like all that stuff. Like, but there's like different sides of it. Like, what do you like and dislike about it?
I will say that I enjoy. I always feel like having a connection with Source, with God, with the Prime Creator is the most important thing. Um, whether you want to pray to, someone that's that you believe in, or you yourself see yourself as like Source, I think is very important. But I think a lot of people that go down that path tend to be a little too, and this is not to insult anybody, but they tend to be a little too in their feminine energy, especially a lot of men that go down that path. And I think that it's important to obviously not get too sucked into that as well. There's a lot of spiritual bypassing as well in the spiritual community. Um, and I've seen a lot of people get taken advantage of because of that as well.
What do you mean by that?
So a lot of things that, I guess, going back to living in Indonesia, um, and going back to the whole psychedelic thing, I would see a lot of people that were, for lack of a better word, very floaty and very spiritual and super. Again, the phrase is called like love and light all the time, and
Yeah.
they really were not addressing deeper issues. I think for the most part, it's important to have your darkness. I think darkness is extremely important. I consider myself a very dark person. That doesn't mean I'm evil or anything like that, but I do consider, having that balance there and not being too much in the, lighter spectrum without having to deal with certain things. Things aren't always going to be positive. Things are going to be shitty sometimes for the most part. It doesn't mean that you have to pretty much go throughout life and just be mopey all the time and stuff like that. But you also can't ignore those feelings. When
Yeah.
something arises, you address it rather than just, think, everything's, everything's peachy all the time. And a lot of these people also would spiritually bypass by taking psychedelics, rather than just addressing what they needed to address. They think, oh, I need more healing or this and that. And they just keep things on one end of the spectrum without actually keeping themselves a little balanced and allowing themselves to feel the whole spectrum of whatever they're going through emotionally. So
Yeah, they're
the
kind of
my,
like
my
ignoring the whole negative side of anything. Like they're like something can obviously be going wrong, or like a person can be acting like a certain way, and they kind of just like bypass it. Basically, they're just like ignore it, or
I,
just
yeah, absolutely. I'm a firm believer, and a lot of
it's
people,
kind of like narcissistic or like sociopathic or something, right?
it can definitely get into the realm of that for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think I think for the most part, it's just being able to acknowledge that, sometimes you have to sort of feel things out and speak about your emotions and not repress them or bypass them by taking something or just magically thinking positive thoughts all the time. I think we need to have that balance. I mean, of positive and negative, of male and feminine, to be able to be, I think at our best. And one of the things that really bothered me the most about what I saw in Indonesia were that a lot of people were on that one end of the spectrum, and it kind of turned me off to the whole thing also. And again, living that lifestyle at the time, a lot of people were like that as well. And I kind of was the only person that was kind of like, okay, I don't know where I fit in here because I'm really not like that, and it's funny because I would be seen a certain way because I was not like that. And I would
Yeah.
sort of distance myself, but it's strange, and that also breeds a lot of different things, or can breed a lot of different issues.
Because you're just trying to like see like the patterns basically that's going about like this behavior, so I guess
Absolutely.
I guess you can see how people are just being like unconscious at a certain point, not getting even any better.
Absolutely. People talk about presence, but they're ignoring something that's, oh yeah, just be present, be positive and all that stuff, but you're ignoring something that's, that needs to be addressed as well. And I think that, again, this is why I also believe in being sober. And I'm not saying like, oh man, like this life is hell. We're gonna go through struggle and strife. It doesn't have to be that way either. I think things can be very simple. We can make things, much simpler than what they really are. People tend to make things very complex when they really are that simple. But I also believe in like, you know, having to solve these problems, and admitting that, I mean, you are this divine being, you are a spiritual being, but we're living a human experience, man. And, sometimes shit sucks, but, you know, yeah, it is what it is.
So back to astrology. When it comes to astrology, what are most people missing from it? Like when it comes to either people talking about it online or just like when they're looking up their chart, like what do you think is something that is key that people are not really?
I think the biggest thing with me, man, whenever I read someone's chart is having them be reminded of who they are and what they came into this world equipped with. And the chart will tell you all that. The chart will tell you how you think, how you communicate, how you intellectualize, how you feel, uh, where you're more abundant in or lucky with, as far as like fortune goes, where you have certain restrictions, setbacks, delays, um, how you display your aggression, how you act, how you display your sexuality, all these different facets of your being. And I feel like astrology is a really cool tool to like examine and be like, oh shit, this is a really good reminder. I knew these things subconsciously because I'm in my body and I lived these experiences. But it's interesting. Whenever you get a reading from somebody, it's like, holy shit, like, and it's accurate. It's like, holy shit, like, yeah, this is a reminder, pretty much. I'm telling you exactly who you are, but having someone tell you who you are that doesn't know anything about you, it's probably gonna be more like revelatory because it's like, wow, this person's telling me all these things, looking
Yeah.
at a chart, and
You already
I'm
realize those things.
exactly, I'm faced with a mirror, and I knew that this was me, but now I'm more conscious about it,
It's like a
and
confirmation almost.
it's pretty much like just like a confirmation for the most part. And obviously, there are certain things that people struggle with, that people have more harmonious experiences with, and it's cool being able to show somebody that and see where their strengths lie, where their attributes are, and where there are potential challenges, or where there could be potential challenges in
Yeah.
a certain area of their life. So
So it's like confirmations, realizations, bunch of
yeah.
different like things. Um, what I guess like what are some things like for example that you knew about yourself that kind of like aligned with your chart and
I
things like
tend to be one of those people that likes to, again, I don't like to go into the negative route, but I do like to go into like the real route.
that? Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I found in my chart that was like the most, not surprising, but the most thing that was like, damn, it's true. I've had an issue with this all my life, is the issue of, if you want to call it, lack or scarcity when it comes to money. I have, there's a particular point in the chart called Chiron. I won't go into the mythology of it, but Chiron is pretty much where our deepest wounds or traumas lie in our chart. And my it's in Gemini. My Chiron is in Gemini. It's in the second house. The second house, for those that don't know about there out there, it's the house of money. It's your personal finances, your material possessions. It's how you spend your money, what you spend your money on. It's how what line of work you might what route or what line of work you might be able to take depending on the archetype or the sign it's in. And I have always had this wound when it came to worrying about money, and I developed like this really scarce mindset where I was afraid to spend money sometimes. I would hoard money sometimes. Um, Whenever I lose money, it would weigh on me heavily or emotionally. So I think understanding though, having that there, understanding that there, and understand that there's healing in that, in the pain, and that does not dictate your self worth. How much money you have does not dictate your self worth at all,
Yeah.
is extremely important. And to me, that was a huge revelation. And even then, I still have bouts with that, but I feel like understanding that that's something that again, I can overcome. And I know it's not something that is, depending on, money is not depending on like my self-worth isn't depending on that, is like extremely important to me. So that's like one of the biggest things for the most part, but there's endless amounts of things.
Is there like a simple way you can put like the signs in the houses? Like a simple way you organize them?
Um, in what way? What do you mean? Like I can tell you what the signs mean, what the houses mean. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
like and then there's groups of them too, right? So like there's the fire signs, the water signs.
So yeah, so we got the planets. It's pretty much sun, moon, Mercury. They all mean a particular thing. The sun's your purpose, your vitality. The moon is your emotions, how you feel. Mercury is how you intellectualize, how you communicate, how you think. Mars is the planet of action, desire. It's how you display your aggression. It's how you display your sexuality. Venus is the planet of relationships. It's your value system, what you value in life and what you value in relationships. Jupiter is the planet of growth, abundance, gifts, blessings. It makes things large. It's expansive. And Saturn is a planet of restrictions, which is the opposite of Jupiter. It tends to create a sense of responsibility in us and rewards us over time through the work. And then we have Uranus, which is a planet of sudden changes, volatility, breakthroughs, breakdowns. It's also synonymous with innovation as well, which we'll be seeing a huge, huge, huge transit with Uranus going into Gemini for 7 years, which is going to be massive when it comes to technological communication. Neptune is a planet of dreams, pushing like psychic boundaries, fantasy, illusion. Pluto is a planet of death, rebirth, transformation, growth. I think that's all of them. And then we have the signs, and the signs all mean a particular thing, man. The signs are the archetypes, man. You know, I mean, like it's definitely a lot to go through right now. I can go through the houses too. The houses are easy. First house is the house of self, physical, body, identity. The second house is the house of money, your personal finances, how you spend your money, what you spend your money on. Third house is house of local travel, elementary education, communication, correspondence, local neighborhoods, your neighbors, your siblings as well. Fourth house are your roots, your origin, your family, your home, your parents in particular. The fifth house is the house of creative self-expression, fun, games, pleasure, sex, romance, dating. The sixth house is the house of physical health, work, daily routine. Could also be synonymous with injury, with pets as well, small pets. The seventh house is the house of close relationships, that of like the long-term partner, people that you're very close to, particularly the marriage partner. The eighth house is the house of death, shared resources, credit, debt, taxes, inheritance. The ninth house is the house of foreign travel or long distance travel, foreign cultures, education, higher education, philosophy, religion, the occult. 10th house is the house of career, vocation, public image, social status. The 11th house is the house of your friends, your social circle, your social network, social movements as well. The 12th house is the house of the subconscious, has themes of like fear, isolation, mental health, mental afflictions, addictions as well. So yeah, it's like these are all areas of our life for the most part. So depending on where a particular sign is in that house, it'll play out a certain archetypal role within that house for the most part.
Yeah. What makes people compatible?
Shit, bro. That's a broad term. Compatibility. I would say, well, there are 5 aspects in astrology, 5 major configurations. There's conjunctions, there's sextiles, trines, squares, and oppositions. I think anything that is a conjunction, a sextile, any sort of aspects for the most part that can be complementary could be like conjunctions, like maybe, I guess, for instance, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Let's say, for whatever, you're a Leo rising. And again, I don't even know, I don't know what your partner is, but you are a Leo rising. Your partner has a Leo Mars. Mars is the planet of aggression, action, desire, but it's also sexuality. The biggest indicator with compatibility, in my opinion, is going to be a Mars conjunction with an ascendant of the same sign. So you're a Leo rising, meaning your physical self, you are a Leo. Your physical body, yourself, your identity is a Leo.
Yeah.
She has a Leo Mars. So her sexuality is very fiery, very passionate, very dramatic, very cinematic. The second she looks at you, she's going to be instantly attracted because there's compatibility there.
Yeah.
There's Mars, the planet of sex or sexuality, in the sign of Leo, and you are a Leo rising. So the native is, if you put 2 charts together on top of each other, and you have those 2 things pretty much there next to each other, it's an indicator of compatibility. There's so many things though. It could be Mars, it could be having the same Mars sign, it could be having the same Mars as the other person's ascendant, like I just mentioned.
Yeah.
It could be having a compatible Venus, same sign in a Venus in the same sign. There's honestly so many, bro.
Yes.
Another big one too is you having the same Venus sign as someone's moon sign. That means that you understand that
You
person
feel their
on an
emotions. Yeah.
emotional level. You know what I mean? Like you're attracted to that person on an emotional level because
Yeah.
Venus and the moon. You put those things together. So, but there's like an infinite amount of combinations, honestly. But I think those are some of the major ones. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Um, so I wanted to get also into because astrology, a lot of people like that don't believe it. One is because like they believe in like this like space and how the planets are and all that stuff, right? So like it makes how it makes sense is with like the dome aspect and stuff
Mhm.
like that, right? Um, so how do those like correlate, and what would it mean to the world if this was true, and why would it be withheld from our knowledge? Like what would change?
We're talking about what if astrology.
Well, like just like because basically like astrology is confirmed like with how the dome aspect of our planet it
Yeah,
would be, you know what I'm saying? That's where it would make the most sense, you
I
know what I'm saying?
personally feel like, I mean, man, if we're gonna get into this discussion, man, I'm not sure how people are gonna take this, but um, I feel like space is a very touchy subject. I think that
Yeah.
I have come to terms with the fact that I don't believe anything that NASA says. I don't believe in the moon landing. I don't believe that we're spinning on a ball, hurling through space at a million miles per hour. I personally, I cannot see how that is completely possible. I like to trust my senses. There's no way that I can be out somewhere or spinning through a ball through space at however 1,000 miles per hour and be just like this. There's no way that a plane can land perfectly on a runway if the Earth is doing that. You know what I mean? Like there's been
Yeah.
countless studies about this too. If you put a camera into the sky at night and you do a time lapse photography of the camera, it's gonna literally the what is it
The point.
what's the north
Like the star,
the star.
the North Star.
I'm drawing a blank. The North Star is going to be
Yeah.
completely stable in the same place, and all the stars are going to be moving around it. If we were,
Yeah.
on a globe, if we were living in a heliocentric system or a globe Earth, things like the stars would be moving all over the place. It wouldn't be this perfect clock for the most part. So I
Yes.
firmly believe that.
Yeah,
I'm not
like
going to say
like
that
the
we're
like the
we're
Native Americans wouldn't have been able to come up with like the astrology basically, if that were the
correct.
case.
Correct. Yeah.
Because they would never find like the pattern. The pattern would be like I guess too irregulated, you know?
Yeah. It just
And
to
it would
me it
be
doesn't
too
make any
far. It would be too
sense.
far away. They'd have to be like it would be millions of years like apart to get the
Yeah.
data.
Honestly, yeah. And again, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. This can go back into the realm of conspiracy theories, but I feel like I trust myself in saying that I just don't. I personally think that astrology is more centered around a geocentric system. Like I mentioned, everything is fixed, and the stars are moving pretty much in a fixed motion. They're not
Like
moving all over the
clockwork, yeah.
place. And I mean, again, this is something. If you've seen the moon landing, it's BS, and every single picture you see from NASA is CG. Like
Yeah.
it's a CG picture, like and people will tell you, oh well, it's telescopes, and that's the quality of the telescope, and bro, that's CG. Like it's not even a real image. Like again, people, and this is a very touchy subject. I've gotten into
Yeah.
arguments with people about this, but like I personally feel like astrology works more, it fits more into a geocentric Earth rather than a heliocentric system for sure. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
Um when it comes to like aliens, metaphysical wonders of the world, like how would you explain that stuff? Like
It's very difficult for me to believe something that I haven't physically seen up
exactly,
close.
yeah.
But people will say that they've seen footage themselves, whether through the naked eye or through cameras of things in the sky. But these things never land at our feet. They never land close enough to us.
Yeah.
And I personally feel like, perhaps if there is going to be an alien hoax or something, it might come into the media at some point, and the media will show us something, but the media has been fake for decades now. So I personally cannot believe anything unless I see it with my own eyes. But I mean, this has gone back to the days of Roswell, New Mexico, where the whole Area 51 thing happened, and people, throughout generations, they're conditioned to believe these things. I mean, if you notice, we in science class we open a book, it's showing us a globe Earth. So we're conditioned to believe we're living on a globe because we're seeing these images, which have an effect on our psychological development, and
Yeah.
we're subconsciously programming ourselves to believe all this. So when you question somebody whether or not we live in this, whether or not we live in a globe Earth or a geocentric system or whatever, they lose their shit. They're like, no, how can this
Yeah.
be? Whatever. I personally, I love hearing different opinions. I think everything is all about perspective. Um, I'm not someone that fears the truth. If I'm wrong, even better. You know what I mean? But I'm firmly rooted in the belief that we are not, like, we're on a geocentric model of Earth, and as far as I know, I don't think aliens are, at least not the aliens that we see on the news. I don't think they're real. To be completely
Yeah.
honest, yo.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I've heard people talk about like like I've heard people say like they went to Machu Picchu and they have actually met like these extraterrestrial beings and stuff like that. Like they teleport. I've heard crazy stories. When I was a chef, this one guy, he was like in Mexico and he was like he was talking about how he used to hang out with like a leprechaun, like a real life leprechaun, you
That's
know,
crazy.
like
I'm
crazy
look.
crazy
I'm
stories.
definitely not. I'm definitely not. Like, I'm not going to be dense and say that there are not some things out there that could be unexplained. I mean, honestly, I would be. I'm so open minded to trying to. I would want to experience something like that. That's very rare. And I've obviously heard people say when taking psychedelics, they meet certain entities or interdimensional beings. Um, but I mean, in this reality, I have not seen anything that has told me that, there's something out there. And I feel like if there is, man, then
Yeah.
it's being kept very secret, because I don't.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't really have any like solid beliefs when it comes to that stuff, but it is interesting. I like to like hear about it and, see what's possible. Um,
absolutely.
but what's a good guide, a quick guide to how your chart works and how you can use it to your advantage?
Sure. How the chart works in astrology. So besides learning about all these different aspects of your being, how you operate, I think the best way to stay ahead of the game, if you want to call it playing chess or whatever, is to also study transits. The transits are at any given point, you know, um, planets ingress into a different sign, and there's a particular flavor for that month, for those couple of weeks, for those couple of years, for those couple of months, depending on the particular planet. Each planet ingresses into a different sign for a certain amount of time. And I feel like if you want to study astrology and go beyond the chart and study transits that are happening in real time, I think that's going to be the most beneficial thing for you, because you can sort of see how the game is played from a bird's eye view, and you can make very, very calculated decisions depending on what the flavor of the month is, or what is transiting, what planet is transiting a certain part of your chart. For instance, if there's some planets that are transiting your second house, it could be a good time to maybe do something with your money. It could be investing money, it could be buying something that you've always wanted, it could be changing jobs, different things like that. At some point, planets can ingress your fifth house or your seventh house, which are relationship houses. Fifth house being the one of dating and romance, seventh house being that of like close relationships. You can possibly meet somebody in particular, that again, you can have good chemistry with, or even fall in love with, or something, particularly during those transits. And you kind of see it. You feel it. You see it. Honestly, it plays out. You can't predict exactly how it plays out, but you can try to make very logical guesses as to how it might play out, depending on how adept you are at astrology and how much you actually are putting things together. But to answer your question, transits, if you know the transits,
Yeah.
especially ahead of time, you can definitely, you'll know how to move, you know.
Yeah. Do you think like billionaires and millionaires use that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that people cannot ignore this at all. We have GG33 out there, and he says the same thing. He definitely says that the elites and people that, study the occult, that are very wealthy, they use this stuff, to make decisions, to make important decisions, or to hold off on making important decisions because it's not the right time. So I definitely
Yeah.
feel like it can be very beneficial. A lot of people will say it's witchcraft. A lot of people will say that it's playing God. But
Yeah.
I do believe, like GG33 says, and again, this is me saying, I don't agree. I'm not a fan of GG33, but I will agree with what he says, is that we do live in a simulated environment. And if you know these teachings, these practices, you can definitely use them to your advantage. But a lot of people do look down on this. But I firmly believe it with my heart that it works.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was a lot of information for people. I
Yeah.
appreciate you, bro. You definitely know what you're talking about when it comes to, you know, herbs, health, astrology. Like, people can hear it just by you answering these questions, like, like the back of your hand. So, um, definitely, guys, if you're trying to be like the millionaires, the billionaires, who are using their astrology, their energy to their advantage, then definitely hit up Steve. He can give you a reading, help you out. And if you're like-minded, he'll add you to his group and, you know, uh,
Show.
spread a bunch of knowledge through that as well. If you guys want to get a reading with Steve, he'll definitely help you guys out. Um, be like the billionaires, use this to your advantage and follow, the right person that can actually that knows what he's talking about. He's not on some like fairy astrology stuff. He's like really into it, really, researches it and, finds the grounded information on it basically.
Yeah, I definitely I run a group chat. I think it's a free group chat on, occult topics, particularly astrology. And yeah, anybody that wants to join, hit me up on IG. I'm pretty sure Kendrick will put my IG on there once he posts a video, but anyone's free to join if they're keen on learning a little more about astrology and yeah, its systems.
Oh yeah. Well, guys, thanks for tuning into the Like Mind Mastermind. You as well, Steve. And look forward to the next one, brother.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah.